All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Today's discussion is going to be on estrogen dominance and hormone balance, using the 5 pillars to explain and describe what that means in your body and some ways to support it. My name is Sarah. We will allow people to slowly trickle in. And so we'll get started on the slideshow in about 1 minute. I just mentioned this, but if you just popped on, you can have your water ready. If you want to take notes during this discussion, feel free to have a pen and paper. There's going to be lots of good information. And we will open up a time for questions at the end. So if you have a question, you can just write it down and save it. There will also be a space in the chat. So if you wanted to write anything in the chat, there will be some answers there, but we will also open up Q&A at the end. So if you have a question that you would love to ask me, save it, hold on to your horses, and then we will open it up at the end. All right, so I'm going to share screen with everyone and we will get started. So here we have Estrogen Dominance and the 5 Pillars by Aeryon Wellness. So I'll let you know a little bit about myself. As I mentioned, my name is Sarah. I'm a holistic health coach and a functional nutritionist. I specialize in female hormone health as well as digestive health. I'm the co-CEO. My partner and I own Embodied Wellness Co., which is a company, and our hashtag and slogan is to make women healthy again. So we started our company as I was in school for holistic health and nutrition, and I just remember sitting in clinic and thinking, wow, women especially are getting more and more sick, right? Infertility rates are rising. So many females have hormone issues, digestive health, yet all over the place, there's wellness this, wellness that. And it seems like more people are becoming aware of health and wellness, yet the fact still remains that we as females are not getting any healthier. And so we started our company to help educate women on holistic health and how to take care of their bodies so that it didn't have to come to the point where women feel unwell or they get to their 20s and they're just starting to learn about how to support their body as a female. So as you can see, I have quite a few certifications. My main practice is in nutrition and functional lab testing, but we also do training as well within our business. A little bit about Aeryon Wellness and the brand story. So here's the lovely Aeryon on the screen. She's the founder and CEO of Aeryon Wellness. She was inspired to start this company based off of her own health journey and her own struggles. So she had a history of doing those fitness competitions where you see the beautiful women up there in their bikini bodies. And that often leads to some issues with food. Hers specifically was a struggle with bulimia. And so her whole company is empowering women through holistic health. So we'll talk about the 5 pillars, which are the base of Aeryon Wellness, and what that really means to take care of your body and to practice holistic health when supporting your body as a female. So these are the 5 pillars of holistic health, and we're really going to take this view and start to integrate it as we discuss hormone health and how to support our bodies as a female. So when we use this really broad term, holistic health, right, we hear it all the time on social media. This is the idea that when we're focusing on supporting our body, when we want to get well, when we want to heal, when we want to balance our hormones, we really need to be looking at ourselves as a whole and not just one piece of the puzzle. So when we're talking about estrogen dominance, which we will today, it's not just about what you're eating or what supplements you take. It's about your mind, it's about your environment, right? And so the idea of holistic health is that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And so when we truly want to heal ourselves as a whole, we need to look at all of these different puzzle pieces. So the 5 that we'll be going through today are the thoughts you think, the friends you keep, movement, the food you eat, as well as supplementation. So this is what we will be discussing today. We'll talk a little bit about what hormone balance is, what is estrogen, what is progesterone, so that we have a good understanding of what we are talking about when we start to get into some of the root causes and the healing. And then we'll move through estrogen dominance and look at it with the 5 pillars of holistic health. So first we'll talk about some reasons, or as we call it, root causes, why someone might see this issue. And then we'll move into different ways to support it. So what is a hormone? What are we even talking about when we use this word? So a hormone is a chemical messenger that tells other systems in the body what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. And we have over 50 known hormones that are secreted in the body. They're actually still discovering more, which is pretty cool to think about. and they can be pretty complicated. So nothing in the body happens in isolation, especially when we're looking at hormones, which move through your bloodstream, and they can be secreted on one area in the body, float through the bloodstream, and then affect different sites. So we really have this beautiful dynamic interplay of hormones in our bodies. So when one hormone is off, this can have what we call a cascade effect, meaning it doesn't only affect that one hormone and its function, it affects other hormones as well. So when we're looking at hormone balance, again, it can be kind of complicated because we always need to take this big picture and understand how all of these systems and hormones and different puzzle pieces all play together, which again, coming back to why it's so important to always have this holistic and larger view when we're looking at hormones. So first, before we get started, let's open up a few questions and see where we're at. So the first question I'm going to ask, you can either answer it in the chat. Answer it in the chat would be the best way. Is PMS normal, or is PMS a necessary part of having a menstrual cycle? Let's see if I could open up the chat. For me, it is yes. Okay, we got one kind of yes, one yes, no, no, yes. All right, so PMS is common, but not normal. Your body was meant to be in balance. As females, we are designed, believe it or not, to feel good and amazing all month long. So there are some changes that happen throughout your cycle, but having symptoms such as pain, cramping, mood swings, these are not actually normal or necessary. And this is a pretty harmful narrative that we're taught from a very young age that, it's just the curse of being a female. But as we start to move into today's discussion, you'll see there's lots of ways that we can support our body to have pain and symptom-free cycles. So the next question, we kind of answered that, are cramps necessary? The answer would be no. The third question, if you have PMS issues, do they end once you head into menopause? You got one no. No. All right, you are on the ball. So they do not end, and oftentimes they actually get exacerbated. So if you have an issue, let's say estrogen dominance, and that is causing a lot of your PMS issues, once we start to go through menopause, we're going to see a shift happen, and these issues can actually sometimes become worse. Issues like low progesterone, if we aren't making enough progesterone, or you're having anovulatory cycles, this can actually cause big issues later on, such as cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, dementia. So we really need to take charge of our health and start to deal with these issues before we transition into peri and menopause. And another common misconception is that perimenopause needs to be really symptomatic as well, when truly it doesn't. And so if you have relatively symptom-free and painless cycles, you're going to have a lot smoother transition into menopause than would be someone who has PMS. So I'm going to sprinkle this little piece of information and let y'all know that you should have your best listening caps on, because about halfway through, we are going to have an opportunity to win a supplement gift pack. It's going to be super rad, so keep your listening ears in check. So let's talk about hormone balance. What is this word that we always hear? Balance this, balance that. So as we mentioned, nothing in the body happens in isolation. And oftentimes when we're talking about hormones like to work together, right? So they help each other out. They're like good friends. And especially when we look at our menstrual cycle, we have fluctuations of certain hormones throughout our cycle that really work with one another to have a certain effect on the body. So if we have one hormone that's in excess, this can affect the other hormones, as I mentioned. If we have a deficiency in one hormone, we're going to see that come in other areas. So when we're talking about this word balance, we want everybody, all of our hormone friends, to be in the right place at the right time, in the right amount, doing the right thing. And so balance is really looking at the actual amount of hormone you have and also its relationship to other hormones. So this will make sense when we get into estrogen and progesterone. But again, we cannot only isolate one piece of the puzzle. We need to look at the whole picture. And I always love to use the metaphor that Having your hormones work interconnectedly when they're all doing the right thing, it's like a symphony, right? So, you know, when you're listening to like, you go to a jazz band concert and then there's one person who's like really off and you're like, ooh, that is just taking the whole thing out of whack. It's really similar in our body. One person or one little hormone player who's a little bit off, it affects everything. So let's talk about estrogens. We aren't going to get too much into all of the little nuances of estrogen. Something to note is that estrogen isn't actually a single hormone, it's a group of hormones. And so typically the most potent or the most common one that you'll get tested is estradiol because it is the stronger form. So estrogen is the one you'll probably hear about the most when we're talking about female reproductive hormones. So this is a hormone that gives us a lot of our feminine characteristics, right? You know, if you got a nice pair of boobs, you got estrogen to thank for that, partially genetics too. It gives us those nice curves, right? Juicy hips. It gives our skin and our lips this like supple softness to it. It gives us a glow. It's really important for our bone health, for our skin, our hair, our blood vessels. So it really has so many beautiful benefits for our body. You'll often hear estrogen getting a bad rep because it is very common to see an excess of estrogen, but it's really important to know that we actually do need estrogen in the right amount, at the right time, doing the right thing. It also is considered one of our happy hormones. So it can stimulate our mood and our sex drive, and it helps to boost dopamine and serotonin. So again, we want it to be in the right amount. We don't want too much. That's going to cause issues such as the ones that we discuss, but we also don't want to have too little. And too little is very common to see post-menopause. So that would be things like vaginal dryness, weight gain, low libido. So again, we want everybody to be in balance. Estrogen, we do need it, and it is a very important player for our menstrual cycles. Progesterone, aka Queen P. So progesterone is a very, very important hormone. One of her main jobs is to protect us against the highs and lows of estrogen. So in the second half of your cycle, so that means right before you get your period and right in the first few days of your cycle, progesterone is protecting us against all of the rise and falls of estrogen. So it is anti-inflammatory, it is a calming hormone. So if you feel pretty good and a little bit more chill in the second half of your cycle, we have progesterone to thank for that. It also boosts our metabolic function. So if you have a period or you have a cycle, you'll probably notice that you get more hungry the week before, and that's thanks to progesterone. So our metabolism is actually faster by about 279 calories the week before our period. So if you were thinking about having an extra snack, go for it. And we need to be ovulating in order to make enough progesterone. So progesterone is a lot more difficult to make than, let's say, estrogen. We do need to be ovulating, and it is quite sensitive to stressors. So if you have a female who's under stress, which we will touch on later, this can really impact your progesterone levels and potentially lead to anovulatory cycles. So let's think about progesterone as a calming hormone that works to stabilize us, and it's very important for our overall mood and also for protecting our brain health and our bone health. So as you will see here, this is our menstrual cycle, and these little guys that are going up and down are our hormone levels. So the main thing to note here is that they are fluctuating throughout the cycle. And this guy here, this beige colored one, is estrogen. So as you will see that I mentioned, as estrogen dips here, you'll see progesterone in green start to rise, right? So it's protecting us against this dip. And then both of your hormones start to peak, and then they fall when you start to have your period. So the main thing to note off of this slide is that you can see that our hormones are like doing a little dance, through our menstrual cycle, and that we do need everyone to be in balance. So when we start to talk about estrogen excess or having low progesterone, if we look at this chart, this is a really good visual, right? So let's look at this space and call this balance. So if we have this guy here, which is progesterone, who's too low, we've changed the space in between estrogen and progesterone, right? So we've thrown off this balance. If we have estrogen that's skyrocketing, we've also changed the space in between. So we've thrown off that balance. So as you can see or understand that if estrogen goes up too high, we have an imbalance of estrogen and progesterone. If progesterone goes too low, but estrogen stays the same, we still have that imbalance. So that's a really important concept to understand, is that the space between is imbalanced. So we want the right amount. Nobody's too high, nobody's too low. So now we're going to move into some root causes or why somebody might have excess estrogen in their body. So we're going to do this from the view of the 5 pillars. And it's important to note that there's no one size fits all to healing, right? So I work with many, many women who have estrogen excess or estrogen dominance. So if I have a client come to me who says, Sarah, I think, or I did a Dutch test maybe, and I have excess estrogen. I, as a practitioner, don't have a list of things like, okay, here's what we're going to do. I need to do a full intake with the person. I need to look at their sleep, stress, nutrition, what supplements they're taking. I need to look at past medication and figure out why the person is experiencing these symptoms. So there is no one size fits all to healing. And as we're starting to move through some of these potential root causes and some healing opportunities, as I call them, you can start to think about, does this apply to me? How might this apply to me? And would this make sense for my body based off of some of the symptoms that you might be having? So this slide here goes into a little bit about what I was discussing, how you can either have high estrogen or low progesterone, and we're still seeing that imbalance. So as you will see in this little graphic, is low progesterone symptoms often are similar, if not the same, to having excess estrogen. Because again, if we have too much estrogen, we relatively have too little progesterone to keep that balance. If we have too much estrogen and our progesterone levels are quote unquote normal, we still have thrown off that balance. So a better way to discuss estrogen dominance is to talk about unopposed estrogen. So if we don't have enough progesterone to oppose estrogen, that is when we have issues. So as you will see here, there's different combinations that you could have for somebody who's manifesting or who's showing these signs of estrogen dominance. So here are a couple of the signs and symptoms of estrogen dominance. So a really common one is having painful periods, very heavy bleeding, bloating and fluid retention, especially around your cycle, weight gain around the hips and thighs, fatigue, insomnia, foggy thinking, PMS, migraines, and headaches is another common one. Having clots in your period blood, breast tenderness. Another big one that's not mentioned on here is endometriosis can be tied to estrogen levels as well as uterine fibroids, right? So sometimes the excess estrogen can cause the fibroid tissue to form. So that would be another common sign and symptom of estrogen dominance. Acne and changes to your skin is also one as well. So let's discuss some root causes, and we will go through them through the next slide. We won't go into all of these, but just to get a big picture of how many things can affect our hormones, and again, why it's so important to take this holistic view. So a very common one is improper elimination and detoxification of estrogen. So if my body is producing a quote unquote normal amount of estrogen, but I'm not able to metabolize and get rid of it, I'm still going to have signs of excess, because as my body produces a good amount, I also still have this buildup that's not getting excreted from my body. So this ties back to gut health, liver health, constipation. All of those can cause improper elimination and detoxification of estrogen. Another one is toxins in the environment. Some of these can actually have an effect on our hormone receptors as humans, so that can affect our estrogen levels. Poor diet, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means. Chronic stress is a really big one. Excess alcohol intake, high insulin levels, so maybe type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes, or maybe someone's unaware that they have issues with insulin going on and they're not properly managing their blood sugar. We could have excess aromatase activity, and we won't get into all the science of what that is. Thyroid issues, high body fat percent, and it's important to know that your body fat actually can produce hormones, right? So it is pretty interesting to think about how it's an active and living organ. So having an excess of body fat or adipose tissue on your body can also impact your hormone levels. And another one is medications such as birth control. So some of these might need medical help, right? We might need to go to conventional medicine. If it's a thyroid issue, you might need to be on synthetic hormones. So for today's discussion, we're going to talk about some of the main ones that you can start to make changes in what you're doing every single day to support. So let's talk about stress. And this is related to the 5 pillars of the thoughts you think. So this is a really great graphic, as I'll often say to clients, well, stress can da 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 da. And they say, oh, I'm not that stressed. And then I think, oh, this client also told me that they were sleeping 4 hours a night, eating 800 calories a day, and exercising for 2 hours. So stress is an umbrella term. And it's really important to understand that when we are talking about stress, we're not only talking about, am I psychologically stressed? We're talking about total stress load on the body. So even if you don't necessarily feel stressed out, we could have any of these things going on, right? Maybe you're doing shift work. Maybe you're overstimulating yourself with caffeine. I mean, I love a good coffee too, but some people are having like 4 to 5 a day. Maybe we're stress eating, maybe we're staying up too late. Maybe we're not getting enough sunlight. So stress is this huge, huge term that can mean any of these things. And so when we're looking at stress and estrogen, it's a two-way street. So when we have high stress or high cortisol, and cortisol we often hear referred to as our stress hormone. And the idea behind that is when our body is under stress or it sees perceived stress, your adrenal glands will pump out a little hormone called cortisol, which is pumped out to help you deal with the stress. So when we're under chronic stress or we're always being stressed out, your adrenals are like, go, 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 pumping out cortisol. And this can cause issues as cortisol can decrease the production of progesterone. So if we have too much cortisol, our body's not going to be able to properly produce progesterone. So if we have low progesterone due to high stress, we also have this unopposed estrogen, which we discussed. And then we also have the other side of that, where if we have high estrogen, it affects our body's ability to deal with stress. So now we're under stress, so we have low progesterone, so we have relatively excess estrogen. And then because we have that excess estrogen, we're also able to deal with less stress. So again, this is why we really need to focus on doing everything we can to look at the whole picture and support our bodies with a holistic perspective. So stress, of course, does have the psycho-emotional component. And this can be acute stressors. So, maybe you have a stressful job or a stressful work environment. This could also be past traumas. This could be having high anxiety, worrying or ruminating thoughts. And all of these can impact our hormone balance because your body doesn't know the difference between me having a stressful job or me being in a fight with my partner and me being chased by a bear and fighting for my life, because your body just knows stress as a signal. And it's also really important to understand, a lot of women who have hormone imbalances, this is a stressor, right? They're not feeling great. If you have really high estrogen, you're not feeling your best. Sometimes that comes along with weight gain. So then we have like emotional stress of the way that we perceive ourselves, right? So it can also be really important and really, really crucial that we start to work on the way that we perceive things and shifting our thoughts and the way that we think about that. And we'll talk a little bit about cognitive behavioral therapy when we go to the healing modalities, but it's really important to understand just how important the thoughts we think really are on our hormone health, finding balance, and our healing, because your cells are listening to every single thing that you say. So we also need to have an ability that we believe that we can get well. There's this really great quote, and it said, if I told you that no matter what, you were going to make $1 million, like there's no way that you weren't going to do it, how many things would you try? You would be out there, you would be trying 1,600 things because you're like, nope, if I knew for sure I was going to make $1 million, I wouldn't stop until I made $1 million. If I didn't believe I was going to make $1 million, I would probably try 1 or 2 things and then quit. So this idea that we need to have such a strong belief that we will heal, our body will find balance, we will get well, that we stop at nothing and we are resilient badasses on the pursuit of our health, because we know that if we keep going and we keep moving in the right direction, we will get there. So then we also have physical stressors. So these are things like lack of sleep, inflammation, maybe some underlying infection that we're unaware of. It can also be red S syndrome, which is relative energy deficiency syndrome, which just means you're either under eating, over exercising, or oftentimes you'll see a combination of the two. And so when we're thinking about stress as this really big idea, I always love to give the idea of asking yourself, how can I take as much stress off of my body as possible? Where am I overstressing myself within my scope of practice or within what I can control, and how can I start to shift that? So can I maybe work out a little bit less if I'm under a lot of work stress? Can I maybe eat a little bit more food if I'm under eating, right? So coming back to this idea of how can I take as much stress off of the body as possible? And that is not only going to help your progesterone and your estrogen, it is going to help almost every single imbalance that you have. Most of them boil down to stress. So if we always come back to this idea when we're not feeling well, we're going to be able to have such a huge benefit for anything that we have going on, not just your hormones. So let's talk about environments. This is very important and it's often overlooked. People will always say, oh, I have X, Y, and Z going on. What can I eat? What supplement can I take? And yes, those things are super important, but so is looking at the other things that, most people might not think matter. But as we know, everything matters. Your body's not picking and choosing what stimulus it responds to, right? So we are doing everything we can within our best ability to support our body. So your environment also stretches to your friends and your community. If I had a rock solid community of women who are like, I know that you're on this journey to support your hormones. I know you want to get well. So I'm going to support you in any way you can. I would be like, hell yes, we will go together. And it makes you feel really encouraged. On the flip side, if I was really trying to support and heal my hormones, and I have friends that are asking me to go out and drink every single weekend, that's going to make my journey a lot more difficult. So we always need to be mindful of the second pillar as well, which is the friends that we keep and the way that our community and environment can either lift us up or in some cases bring us down. Then we also have EDCs, and these are what I briefly mentioned before. So they're chemicals in the environment that bind to our body's estrogen receptors and mimic the effects of our body's hormones. So that's pretty crazy to think about, right? I have these toxins in the environment and they come into my body and they bind to my receptors and they have a similar effect that my body's estrogen does. So if we have too much of these in our environment, as you can imagine, we're still getting the effects of excess estrogen from these exogenous or outside of the body sources. So over time, this can also have an impact on our liver. And your liver is like an absolute boss at detoxification. It is the unsung hero of hormone health in your body. So everything that goes into your body that's a chemical has to be processed by your liver. So if we're exposing ourselves to too many chemicals, your liver is going to be overburdened and potentially become sluggish or slow. And that will impact its ability to get rid of your estrogen and to detox your estrogen. So these toxins in the environment can have a few different effects on our body. So they bind to our estrogen receptors and they can also impact your liver health. So some examples are pesticides, herbicides. So those are things that are sprayed on food, metals, so heavy metals. Plastics is a really big one. So I would say the easiest switch is if you're storing your hot food into plastic containers, it heats up the plastic and it can leach into your food. Another one is heating up plastic containers in the microwave. So that's a pretty simple swap to make. And just noticing, if you're drinking from a plastic bottle, maybe getting like, this is a metal shaker instead of a plastic one, or you could drink from glass, just making these tiny swaps that all add up and have an impact on our hormones. Another really big one to think about is our beauty products. So how many beauty products do most females use in a day? Lots. You wake up, you wash your face, you put on your little moisturizer, make sure your skin's looking good, put on a little mascara, right? So we're exposing ourselves to so many different chemicals, perfume, body wash, body lotion, you name it. It's tough being a female, right? We've got so much upkeep to keep this beauty. So just making small switches can have a huge impact. So you don't need to go into your bathroom and be like, oh my gosh, I'm throwing out all this crap for my hormones. It's as simple as, oh, I ran out of my mascara. So, maybe I'll just switch my mascara. And so just making these small swaps can play a huge role. The food you eat. So as I mentioned, I'm a nutritionist at heart. I could talk about this all day. It is such a huge topic, but we'll talk about the general supports. So, nutrient deficiencies, right? If we're eating a diet that looks a little bit like this picture over here, we're not getting enough nutrients that our body needs. So, coming back to whole foods, eating a variety of produce. If we're over consuming highly processed foods, this can also have an impact on our hormones because there's lots of synthetics in there that can impact, again, our liver, our gut health, our inflammation levels. If we have high inflammation, this can prevent progesterone from being produced. Why? Because it's a stressor on the body. It can also inhibit our body's conversion of food for energy. So there's the quote that says, you are not what you eat, you are what you absorb. And just because you put something into your body doesn't mean your body's actually able to break it down and use it for energy. So if we're eating a bunch of food like these honestly delicious looking chips and candy over here, it's going to impact our body's ability to use our nutrition to support us. Really, really big one is a lack of fiber. This is something I see quite commonly when I start working with clients is they're eating like 6, 10, maybe 13 grams a day. So the RDA is around 25 grams. And I will note that every single body is different, but lack of fiber can prevent daily bowel movements, which you got to be pooping, my friends. You got to be pooping for healthy estrogen levels, which we will talk about. If we're eating too many carbohydrates, processed food, this can lead to blood sugar imbalances. Another big one is having conventional dairy and red meat. They can add hormones and antibiotics. And I always get the question about, isn't that banned in Canada? Yes, however, there are ways around it. So if you have one cow that gets sick, they can give every cow antibiotics. And if you think about how big a lot of the farming practices are, how many animals they have, the probability of that is pretty high. So again, we always need to do the best that we can. That doesn't mean you need to stop eating it altogether, but just if you can and it's within your means, maybe having a higher quality, or maybe just cutting back a little bit and trying potentially like dairy-free alternatives or whatever seems like it's aligned for what's in your abilities. And then weight management is another important part of nutrition for when we're talking about hormone health. As I mentioned, excess adipose tissue can secrete estrogen. And so when we eat mainly whole foods and we're using nutrition to support our internal health, it can have effect on healthy body weight as well. Issues with metabolism and excretion. So digestive issues such as constipation, dysbiosis, which just means an imbalance of bacteria in your stomach, sluggish liver can impact estrogen levels. Let's talk about constipation. Hey, why don't we talk about poo? I, as a nutritionist, love talking about poo. I could do it all day. So when we are constipated, that has a lot of the crap, no pun intended, that your body is trying to get rid of, including excess hormones and estrogen. So when we have our poo in our bowels that has the estrogen that's trying to leave the body and it's not actually leaving the body, the estrogen can get reabsorbed through your intestinal walls and it goes back into the bloodstream in a more potent form. So your body was trying to get rid of it, but if we don't have daily bowel movements, it can get reabsorbed into your bloodstream and then go bind to receptors. So it's really important to be pooping every damn day. Every damn day. If you're taking notes, that's definitely something you're going to want to write down there. Next is dysbiosis. So we've probably heard all disease begins in the gut. So your gut is very, very complex. I would argue more complex than your hormones or equal. So we have all of these little bacteria friends in our gut, and they're all doing different things. As humans, we're actually outnumbered 10 to 1 by bacteria cells. So for every one human cell I have on my body, I got 10 bacteria cells, which is pretty wild to think about. So there's a certain type of gut bacteria. It's called beta glucuronidase. Don't need to know that. And it can deconjugate estrogen back into its active form. What the heck does that fancy word mean? Essentially, your body has to change the form of estrogen in order to get it out of your body so that it's in a water-soluble form so that you can pee or poo it out. So in your gut, these certain type of bacteria can take the estrogen that's been converted and it can reconvert it back to the active form. So your body's trying to get rid of it. If you have too much of this bad bacteria, it can reconvert it into the active form, which then causes the issue of your body not being able to get rid of it. Again, we can also have issues with our liver health. So we need the liver to metabolize estrogen so that it can be excreted. If our liver isn't functioning properly, then we're not going to be able to get rid of the estrogen. It is also the place where your estrogen gets converted, as we mentioned, into that form where it can leave the body. So if that's not happening, we're going to see an excess. Alcohol, drugs, and medication. So we won't talk about this too much, but just to note that excess alcohol intake can lead to higher estrogen levels. It specifically has a link with breast cancer as well. And then medications such as hormonal birth control, especially the kinds that have estrogens, can drive up estrogen in your body. That one's pretty self-explanatory. So let's talk about some supports. But before we do that, now's your chance to win a prize. So based off of what we just discussed, and I did give some of these away, what are 3 ways that you could support healthy estrogen levels? Write it in the chat for your chance to win a supplement package. Poop daily. I love these ones. Sweet. Great work for answering. I love how you had your listening ears, and I love how people are saying that you should poo, because that was it's a personal favorite. That one holds a special place in my heart. So let's talk first about the thoughts you think and stress and general supports. So the best medicine is preventative. What does this mean? So we don't want to be waiting till we're at the point where we feel overwhelmed or we feel like we're on the brink of burnout and then go, oh crap, I should probably do something about that whole stress situation. We do want to be practicing stress management practices every single day. So there's this idea of stress resiliency. And when we have these daily practices, we're building up our body's ability to deal with stress. You know, meditation is a really great example. Could be getting out in nature, doing breath work, anything that makes you feel relaxed and calm is good to include, ideally daily, but potentially weekly. Self-care is really, really important for your hormones. So we are not robots. We cannot be working 24/7, 365. We need to slow down and take care of ourselves. Cognitive behavioral therapy. So if you find that your mindset or the way that you think about yourself or the way that you think about your abilities to maybe heal or to change your habits, this can be a really, really beautiful and potent tool to be able to shift your mindset so that you can, they always use this term, get out of your own way. I don't love that, but that's the idea behind it. If you can change the way that you think about things and perceive things, you're going to be better able to change your actions and your behaviors. Getting enough sleep, so about 7 to 9 hours in recovery, surrounding yourself with a supportive community, and being mindful of alcohol intake. So these are some general ones. Of course, I could do a whole slideshow on stress management, but really, again, coming back to this idea of how you can take as much stress off of the body as you can. And that's going to look different for everyone. Let's talk about movement. This guy is my favorite with his arms up. He's like, yeah, let's go. So staying active helps to support our hormones. It can reduce stress when it's done in a good amount. It can also add stress when we have too much exercise, right? So again, we want this idea of balance as a happy medium. So it also helps with insulin regulation. We touched a little bit about how dysregulated blood sugar can impact your estrogen levels. So it helps our body's blood sugar stay more stable and helps us become more sensitive to insulin. When we're strength training, so that's a specific type of exercise where we are putting our muscles under some sort of resistance. This is really, really helpful for our hormones, as the more lean muscle mass we have, the more that we're able to deal with insulin, the more it supports healthy body composition and really supports our overall health. Exercise can also lower levels of circulating estrogen when estrogen is in excess. And getting your heart rate up for 30 minutes a day has been shown to support estrogen balance. So many benefits of movement, right? And movement doesn't have to be like going to the gym, going on a run. The best way to move is something you're going to stick to and something that you enjoy doing. So if you like doing yoga, cool. If you like going on walks, awesome. If you like dancing, sweet. So anything that you enjoy doing is going to be supportive. The biggest key is consistency and finding something that you like and that you will stick to. So let's go back to this idea of environment. So this is an app, it's called Think Dirty. I love this app. I use it all the time. I recommend it to everybody and their mother. And you can download it on your phone. It's actually a free app too, so that's pretty awesome. So if you were like, maybe your mascara runs out and you wanted to switch to a natural mascara, but you go to the store and you're like, I'm not really sure because, a lot of companies nowadays will say natural this, natural that. You can either look the product up or you can scan it based off of the barcode and it will pop up. And as you'll see here, it will give it a rating. And then you'll also be able to see the ingredients that maybe are not so awesome. So then you can make an informed decision. Let's say there's 3 different mascaras, you try them all, and it's like one has maybe 3 more potentially harmful ingredients than the other. So maybe you choose the other one, right? So we're using this as a resource to understand what toxins and chemicals are in the products that we're using. As I mentioned before, cutting back on your use of plastic. So using glass containers is a really great one. Maybe switching from plastic wrap to putting your things in containers, all of these little things that add up. And eating organic when possible, which can reduce your exposure to pesticides and herbicides. I understand that eating organic is not within everybody's means. So a good place to start is looking up the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So this is a list of the 12 foods is the Dirty Dozen that are the most sprayed. So these would be ones where if you did have the means to purchase organic, that would be where you want to start. And then we have the Clean 15, which are ones that are probably fine to not purchase organic. They're usually ones that have like a shell or a skin on it or a peel that we're not going to be eating. So that would be a good place to start. Another good tip is buying frozen. So when you have vegetables that are frozen, they often freeze them when they're in season. So they can actually have a higher nutrition profile if they're not in season in the fresh version. And you can often find organic frozen cheaper than conventional fresh vegetables and fruit. That's your little tip of the day. The food you eat, nutrition. So one great way that we can use nutrition to support our body's stress levels is eating it consistently. And so I know intermittent fasting was this really, really big craze, and it can be so beneficial. Fasting is extremely therapeutic. However, for many females who are in our menstrual years, it is a big stressor on the body, and most of us are already under a lot of stress. So a great way to support healthy progesterone levels and reduce your overall stress is eating within an hour of waking, so no skipping breakfast, and eating consistently every 3 to 4-ish hours to support blood sugar balance. Another one is focusing more on whole foods and reducing any inflammatory foods such as processed sugar, not natural sugars like those from fruit. We're looking at added sugars, so things like high fructose corn syrup. Other inflammatory foods might be vegetable oils, anything that you're sensitive to. For some people, gluten and dairy, that's not the case for everyone, but for many people it is. Another great way we can support our estrogen levels is adequate fiber intake. So again, if we were going to look at numbers, it would be around 25 to 30 grams. We're all a little different, but a good habit-based way to think about this is eating about 7 different types of produce a day and making sure that you're rotating them. So the best way to support our gut health is to eat a variety of fruits and vegetables. Many of us, myself included, can get caught in eating the same things week after week. So maybe every time you go to the grocery store, you just switch out a couple, try something new that you haven't had. The next one, this is one of my favorite food is medicine moments, having 1 to 2 raw carrots a day. So carrots are bosses. Carrots are the boss of the vegetable family. So they actually have special fibers in them that bind to endotoxins and excess estrogen and help your body excrete them. So having a raw carrot a day, 1 or 2, is a great way to support healthy estrogen levels. And it's a beautiful food is medicine moment. It's so incredible when we start to think about how much food and vegetables can impact our body. Love it. Another one is eating an antioxidant rich and liver supporting food diet. So antioxidant, a really good way to start to think about this is any produce that's dark in color. So we're thinking cherries, berries, kale, eggplant, anything that is dark in color typically has a higher antioxidant profile. And for liver supporting foods, they're mostly foods that taste bitter. So this would be things like arugula, and then also cruciferous vegetables. So broccoli, cauliflower, kale, Brussels sprouts, all of those ones that make you pretty farty is a good way to think about it. And then of course, minimizing foods that could potentially have added hormones in them. So lastly, we'll talk about supplements. So we're going to go through 3 today, and these are beautiful blends by Aeryon that really support our hormones from a holistic perspective. So we're going to hit a few of the different systems that we've talked about today. So this one is called Reclaim, and it is a special blend to support estrogen detoxification and hormone balance. So the blend can help with PMS symptoms related to estrogen and progesterone imbalances. So painful periods, mood imbalances, acne, water retention. It also helps to support the metabolism and detoxification pathways. So you don't only need to take this before your period. It can be really great to take throughout your whole cycle. Supports liver health and functioning, as well as weight management, which, as we noted, helps with estrogen balance. So what is in this beautiful blend? Well, let me tell you. So we'll go through the ingredients here. So the first is calcium D-glucarate. So this helps with liver detoxification and elimination of estrogen. The next is green tea extract, which helps to support weight management, blood sugar regulation, can help with disease prevention, exercise recovery, as well as liver health. We have broccoli, sulforaphane. So as I mentioned, cruciferous vegetables, very supportive for our liver health. It is an antioxidant, antimicrobial, so that means killing off bacteria, anti-aging, and neuroprotective. So that means protecting our brain, and it can also help with mood stability. DIM helps to support your body's processing of estrogen into safe metabolites. So as I mentioned, when we have to convert estrogen into the form where it can leave the body, there's different pathways that it can go down. Some of the pathways are considered cancer protecting, and some are considered cancer promoting. So we want a lot of our estrogen to be going down these cancer protective pathways. So DIM can really help with that. So it also naturally helps to prevent breast, uterine, and colorectal cancer, as well as helping with PMS. And then within the same supplement, we also have a mood balancing support complex. So vitamin B6 is one of my all-time faves for helping PMS or hormone issues. It can help with estrogen detox, improves egg quality, progesterone production, and can help to reduce PMS symptoms. St. John's wort is a super potent and really beautiful herb that can help with mood imbalances. Lots of studies have actually shown that it's equally as effective as Prozac, which is an antidepressant, in treating PMDD, which is premenstrual depression. So it is super, super incredible for helping with mood stability. White yam has been super helpful. It is a highly studied herb that they've been using for a really long time, which can benefit PMS, support progesterone, vaginal dryness, low libido, and osteoporosis. We have astragalus, which is an adaptogen. So an adaptogen is any herb that can help our body deal with stress. So it's immune boosting as well as anti-aging and can protect against heart disease. And then we have zinc, which is one of my favorite supplements favorite supplements to help with period cramps. It's also very helpful for immune, thyroid health, sex drive, and digestive health. So we have an estrogen detox complex as well as a mood supporting complex. And these herbs really help with a lot of the symptoms that women commonly see leading up to their cycle and PMS related issues. Reset. So this is another supplement which is very supportive for liver health. It's really incredible to use if you have been on hormonal birth control. It helps your body to process excess hormones, as well as really supporting estrogen detox, of course, as well as liver and progesterone production. So Vitex is the GOAT for low progesterone. It is one of the most used supplements for anyone who is experiencing low progesterone or anovulatory cycles. So as I mentioned, it helps with progesterone production as well as ovulation. Resveratrol is an antioxidant, so this helps to support liver detoxification. It also is an estrogen modulator. So this word modulator essentially means that if somebody has high estrogen, it will help bring it low. And if somebody has low estrogen, it can help bring it up. So it modulates levels of estrogen in the body. Milk thistle, one of the most common herbs that's given or used to support healthy liver functioning. NAC, which is N-acetylcysteine. So this is really helpful for gut functioning, so your overall gut and detoxification pathways, fertility, as well as improving mood. Then we have B vitamins, which are so crucial for hormone health, B6, which we touched about, as well as producing energy levels. improving energy levels. So next we have Restore, and Restore is a stress support supplement. So as I noted, we have our adrenal glands which secrete cortisol. So cortisol is at the base of hormone health. So if we have an imbalance of cortisol, it's going to affect your sex hormones. So when we're really looking at the big picture, no matter what hormone imbalance we have going on, we always want to be supporting our adrenals and coming back to this question: how can I take as much stress off the body as possible? Supporting your adrenals is a really great way to help to build up that adaptive reserve and build up your stress resilience. It can also help boost cognition, energy, and focus. So cortisol is considered your stress hormone, but it's also very important for our energy. Sets our circadian rhythm. It helps us to feel alert and energized. So we do need cortisol in a good amount. It also enhances mood and supports our overall hormone harmony and symphony. So this has a beautiful blend. The first ingredient is Chinese hawthorn. I have gone to school for acupuncture and TCM. They have used this for a long time in traditional Chinese medicine. It is a great support for stress management. It can help to reduce stress hormone-induced depression as well as boost mood. We have ashwagandha, which is probably one of the more common adaptogens. It can help your body to manage and deal with stressors. It's also very calming for a lot of people. We have bacopa. This is a really great one for cognition and memory, and it's also a neural antioxidant. It can help with serotonin and acetylcholine. These are neurotransmitters in our brain and support memory. Astragalus is another adaptogen, so again, helping our body deal with stressors. It also helps with neurochemical impairments in the brain that are caused by stress. So of course, when we're under stress, our brain is affected, so astragalus can be a really great support for that. Schisandra, which helps to boost energy and stamina. So again, just helping to build up that adaptive reserve. Our energy levels are often depleted when we're under stress, so this is a really great support for that. And another B vitamin, would you look at that? This time it's B5, which helps with overall energy production and systems in our body, as well as supporting adrenal functioning. So that is all for the slides. I'm going to open it up for some questions now. So I will open the chat. There's 50. Maybe we can go in this Q&A. So if anyone wants to ask questions, they can ask in either of these chats. If you had a question and it went unanswered, you can feel free to ask. Can teens use these supplements? Yes, definitely. Can you talk about DHEA? Yeah, so DHEA is considered a mother hormone. And DHEA is, so when we talk about hormone balance, as we mentioned, estrogen and progesterone go together. So DHEA, we're often thinking about a balance between DHEA and cortisol, right? So when we're thinking about the balance, we want cortisol and DHEA to also be in a good balance. So our body needs to be producing enough DHEA, which is considered a mother hormone or a precursor hormone, to create progesterone. So if we have low DHEA, we will also have low progesterone. And so again, coming back to this idea of balance, when we have too much cortisol and not enough DHEA, we're also going to have issues with progesterone production, which can throw off the balance. Which would I recommend for teens? So again, we always want to be looking at things as an individual perspective, right? So it would depend on what your teen has going on and what their main symptoms or where their body needs support. So if you have a teen who is maybe just starting to get their period, oftentimes when women are first getting their period, they will see a lot more PMS symptoms like heavy bleeding, a lot of acne. And so a really good one would be helping to support their liver. So Reset would be really, really great for that. Are there ways to help reduce fibroids and cysts? So This has a lot of mixed research. Some people say yes. I have seen with a lot of clients and seen clinically that yes, there are ways to reduce them. However, the generally accepted thing to say is that we can prevent them from growing. So we would want to be doing all of the things that we mentioned, being mindful of your nutrition, working on really helping support the detoxification pathways so that we can support healthy estrogen levels. So you would want to be following all of the things that we discussed today to support your estrogen, which can help with fibroids and cysts and help them from growing as well. A really big one is also doing screening for like lab testing, such as thyroid. So you would want to get your TSH checked, as well as fasting glucose and C-reactive protein, which is a marker for inflammation. Do you recommend HRT or supplements for premenopausal women? This is not actually something that legally I'm able to say. That would be something you would want to check with your doctor or your medical care team about, as I haven't done a full intake on your body. And also as a nutrition practitioner, we're not able to give diagnoses or conventional medicine prescriptions. So that would definitely be something to check with your doctor, depending on your body and depending on where you're at. There might be a need for hormone replacement therapy, potentially supplementation. For some women, they do use both as well. Somebody raise their hand. I don't know how to. I'm going to scroll up and go through some of these. I've read a lot about kale being super bad for you. Okay, I love this comment. If you follow Dave Asprey on Instagram, you've probably heard this. So we always have to ask the question of, what does it mean when we're saying something is bad for you or good for you? What are we talking about, right? So kale, if we think about any vegetable, especially kale, you know when you squish kale between your fingers and it gets bruised, or you see that bruising? That's because kale has cell walls that are meant to protect it. So plants also have anti-nutrients, which are made to protect themselves so people don't eat them. So the beef with kale, no pun intended, is that it has a lot of anti-nutrients and that it can be damaging to your body in that way. So some things that we always want to look at is, how is the person's digestive system? Kale is a very, very difficult food to digest, especially when it's raw. And also, how much is the person eating? A lot of the studies done, you'll see, is like eating 6 cups of, or like an amount of kale that nobody would eat. And they're like, yeah, and that caused issues. So we're always considering how our body responds to it. Do you have any issues with eating kale that you notice? And also the amount that you're eating. So just like anything, we don't want to overdo it. Are baby carrots okay? Yeah, why not? This looks like we are talking about crunchy veggies. There's been a lot of concerns with supplements, as per my doctor, because they're not regulated and extrins.
I can help answer this one. Hi, everybody.
Yes.
Because I've answered this one in the chat and then also on the questions. So hi, everybody. I'm Erin. I'm from Aeryon Wellness. On the bottle of every single product in Canada, we have natural product numbers. It's called an NPN. So what we have to do as suppliers to get an NPN is we have to submit pages and pages and pages of clinical and scientific research behind every single ingredient, behind the claims we're making on these products. So if you see a product without an NPN, don't buy it. Personally, we have the most regulated, safe country in the world to really buy supplements. I wouldn't buy anything anywhere else but Canada, if I'm honest with you. And so every single supplement has scientific data for every single ingredient. All the products have been tested. We have third-party testing as well to make sure that there's no mold or fungus or all these COAs, which are certificate of analysis, where the ingredient actually comes from, has testing as well. So you can definitely trust the Canadian, NPN, natural product number. So if you look on the side of a bottle, I've got my bottles here, you'll see it says NPN and there's a number on every single one. And you can actually Google that within Health Canada and it will tell you all the claims the product has. So they're really hard to get. Some of them take years to get NPN. So I would definitely say it's very safe to buy supplements in Canada.
You can still continue to ask questions, move to this next slide, which will also be really awesome. If you were wanting to learn more about a supplement that we discussed today, or you wanted to just learn more about it in general, maybe you go to the store and you're like, that sounded really great, but I kind of forgot why I wanted to take that. Aeryon is a boss. You just heard her talk, so you probably already know that. She has created this QR code technology for supplements. She's the first person to do it, which landed her a deal with Dragon's Den. No big deal, you know, a little bit of a humble brag there. So essentially, you would just open up your phone camera. They all have these little QR codes on them. You would scan it, and it will pop up with a 60-second video that explains the product and the ingredients that are in it. And it will also give you the ability to download a meal plan. We will also be emailing everyone out a meal plan, so you can check your emails after this webinar is done. So if you were at the store and you were like, wasn't really sure why I wrote this down or why I was interested in this one, this is a really great way to test it. I love this idea, and I'm so glad that somebody has brought this into the supplement industry, because a lot of the times we see all these supplements in stores or someone recommended them. And a lot of time I'll talk with my clients and I'm like, oh, why are you taking this supplement when we start together? And they're like, oh, I don't really know. So it's really great to have this right on the bottle if you wanted to learn more. And I'm just going to leave this slide up here, which is where you can connect with us. So on our website, we have a newsletter, so you can subscribe to that, which will give you lots of information on holistic health and the 5 pillars we talked about. Instagram and Twitter is Aeryon Wellness, Facebook, YouTube, same. My personal Instagram is Sarah Collins Wellness, so you can link me there. If you enjoyed today's show, please send me a message and let me know that you were on it and we can get chatting. I talk lots about this stuff as well.
I was going to say as well, if you subscribe to our newsletter, we're going to be giving webinars on a monthly basis. So then you'll be notified when there's upcoming webinars, such as perimenopause. I know thyroid's another issue people want to talk about, stress support. So we're going to be having more webinars on a monthly basis. Sarah, there was a question there from Jody Swift, and she said, are supplements okay if you're on hormone replacement therapy?
So legally, I am not able to answer this question. That is something you would have to check with your care provider about it. Some supplements, yes. Some supplements, no, depending on what the supplement is. I would say from the ones that we talked about, one of the supplements or the ingredients that has the most interactions would be resveratrol, because it is processed through the liver and can impact that. But you would always want to check with your care provider before going on any supplement if you are on any sort of conventional medicine. There's also a resource, it's called drugs.com. No, I'm not sending you to a plug. And you can look up whatever supplement you want, and it will tell you all of the interactions, which ones have moderate interactions. So if you are unsure about any of the ingredients, that's another great resource as well to go on and double check. Where did my mouse go? There.
And do you see this too? How long can you recommend being on Reset for? Reset is usually like a 90 days around that time, and then you can switch off to Reclaim if you'd like to. That's one of the
So you would want to start. Yeah, you would want to start Reset 2 months before you come off of birth control, if you haven't already come off, so that it gives your body a chance to get in some of the nutrients and to start supporting before you transition off. But yes, 3 months is a great time.
I will say Sarah just did a webinar, a recent one we're going to be posting on the YouTube channel probably tonight or tomorrow. And it is talking all about hormonal detox and coming off the birth control pill. So that one is available for you to watch as well.
Do we have any webinars on menopause? We will. Coming right up.
We will.
So I'll open it up for a couple more minutes. If anyone has YouTube channels, Aeryon Wellness, I will move this so that you will see.
And we can purchase the supplements. Actually, this is Community Naturals tonight. So if you are in Calgary, please go on in and support Community. That would be wonderful. They do actually have shippers, and all the products are in all the stores there. So a great thank you to Community. I'm a Calgary born and raised girl, so it's really amazing to see the products there. So Community definitely sells them if you are in Calgary.
Will we have a webinar on endometriosis?
Yes, we can do that.
Yes, will.
We will. And you just sign up for, if you just sign up for them on the newsletter. So we do have the newsletter on the website. Every month we pump out what webinars are coming up next. I believe we have perimenopause is going to be the next one. So if that interests you, yeah. Out in Okotoks, I believe we are, if you're not close to Community, there is a Netters out in Okotoks, I believe, that does carry the products as well.
All right. Thank you for all the info. Thank you to everyone so much for attending and listening and tuning in. I hope that you got a lot out of this webinar. We will be sending out the recording as an email as well. So if you missed it or you want to go back and you were like, wow, that was really good, but that chick, man, she talks so fast. You can go back and listen to it. Not that I've ever been told that before, but.
Awesome.
You are so welcome. If anyone has any other questions that pop up, you can also send me them on Instagram, Sarah Collins Wellness, and I will be happy to chat with you and answer all things hormone related.